That evening, everything already felt wrong, like the air itself had shifted into something unbalanced territory. We were at her friend's new apartment party, one of those gatherings heavy with forced laughter, glasses touching too politely, and everyone acting as if their marriages were flawless magazine covers. I'd been on edge from the moment we stepped inside, not because of the strangers, but because of him, the man she swore was only a friend, the man whose jokes made her laugh too freely, the man whose gaze rested on her a heartbeat longer than it should. Every time I brought it up, she'd answer in that soft, condescending voice that made me feel small and paranoid. But that night the mask slipped, and the reality began seeping out like blood through thin fabric. It started with one of their private jokes, the kind that belongs between lovers, not just friends. His palm stayed on the small of her back a fraction too long. His smile toward her carried too much heat. I studied them the way a man studies evidence when he finally admits he's been fooled for months. Then she leaned close and murmured, "Don't cause trouble. He gets weird when he's had too much." My gut nodded instantly. Why would a friend's behavior matter so much to her? Why was she shielding him instead of me? Why was I the one being asked to stay quiet? The moment that broke me came in the kitchen. He passed behind her, but it wasn't an accidental brush. His hand drifted down her side, slow and certain, like it knew every curve by heart, like it had traveled that path countless times when I wasn't looking. She stiffened. I froze. For one endless second, the whole house seemed to go mute. Then she turned to me with a fragile, pleading half-smile, silently begging me not to acknowledge what was screaming in plain sight, not to explode, not to ruin whatever evening she still wanted to protect. I didn't speak. I didn't trust my voice. I simply placed my glass on the counter with deliberate calm, turned, walked through the crowded rooms, and left the house without a backward glance. I heard her call my name as the front door clicked shut, but I kept moving. If I had stayed another heartbeat, something violent and uncontrollable would have spilled out in front of everyone. I walked for miles, street after street, until the music and voices faded into nothing and the cold air burned my lungs. When I finally stepped into the apartment we had shared, the quiet wrapped around me like armor. I closed the door, looked at the photographs smiling from the walls, the cushions she picked out, the throw blanket she always stole, and suddenly it all belonged to strangers. I stood in the middle of the living room, breathing slow and deep, letting a sharp, icy clarity flood through me for the first time in months. Then I pulled 2 large suitcases from the closet and started with her clothes. Every dress she wore on those girls' nights. Every sweater, every pair of jeans, every scrap of fabric that now felt contaminated. The bottles of perfume that carried memories of lies, the necklaces he might have once said looked beautiful on her. Everything went in, folded with mechanical precision. Not out of care, but because the neatness felt like ceremony, like burying the woman I thought I knew, burying the marriage I thought we had. The sound of the zippers closing was final, almost sacred. My phone began to vibrate once, twice, then nonstop. Missed calls, frantic texts, voice messages laced with fear. "Where are you? Answer me. Please don't do anything rash." I let it ring. I wanted her to drown in that same silence she had fed me for months, every time she hit her phone, every time she came home too late with excuses that never quite right. An hour later, the messages changed. The panic turned into bargaining. Long paragraphs full of justifications. He was drunk. It wasn't what I thought. I overreacted. We needed to talk face to face. I was scaring her. But nowhere in all those words did she say, "I never touched him. Nothing happened." Because she couldn't. I opened the camera, aimed it at the 2 suitcases standing side by the front door like sentries, snapped the picture and sent it with a single line. "Home, packing your life away." 10 seconds of dead silence on her end. Then the typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. She had no script for this. She had never imagined the quiet, trusting man she married could move this decisively. Finally, her reply came, 2 shaking words, "Please wait." I didn't answer. I locked the front door from the inside, left the cases exactly where they were, and sat on the couch listening to the clock tick like a bomb. I pictured her speeding home, rehearsing tears and explanations, ready to fall on her knees and rewrite history. But the rage had already burned itself cold. What remained was only a vast, hollow piece. When the door finally flew open an hour later, she stumbled in shaking, hair wild, black streaks of mascara down her face. She saw the suitcases and something inside her seemed to collapse. Her legs gave way. She reached for me with trembling hands, already forming apologies, but I rose and stepped around her as if she were made of air. I paused only long enough to say, calm and low, "You can go to him now. This isn't your home anymore." Then I walked out, pulled the door shut behind me, and left her alone with the life she had chosen and the one she had just lost forever.